it's relatively safe to say that a lot of eyes are currently on Anthem. It's one of the first AAA releases of 2019, a brand new IP from BioWare, and of course the latest game that EA is involved with. After some less than stellar performance from Battlefield 5 at launch, the loot box controversy of Star Wars Battlefront 2, and overall a general dislike for EA as a whole, a lot is currently riding on Anthem to be successful. BioWare is somewhat in the same boat as well due to a subpar reception of Mass Effect Andromeda, which at launch was littered with its own pieces of controversy, so they too are looking for Anthem to perform well. Launch is still just over a month away, but we can still take a look at a few things Anthem is doing right to help push itself towards a better launch and overall a better game come February. My name is Morgan, and welcome to Split Screen. Microtransactions have forced their way into the spotlight of gaming over the past few years, with big companies like EA and Activision looking to nickel and dime players in any way possible until the customer decides that they've had enough and actively vote with their wallet. They have become so dominant in today's gaming culture that it is a selling point of your game to have no microtransactions at all, and that is the sad truth of the industry today. But taking a look at things from a slightly different perspective, we'll also show you that just because a game has microtransactions doesn't mean they're bad from the start. Free-to-play games such as Fortnite or Path of Exile both offer cosmetic-only microtransactions, which often cost upwards of $10+. But this isn't frowned upon due to the games being free-to-play, and these offer only cosmetic changes. AAA releases like Call of Duty have taken some rather interesting strides in their monetization model, starting with what many argued was a pay-to-win system, locking weapon variants with altered stats and other changes behind paid supply drops, which eventually turned sour in the eyes of the general community. This ultimately forced Activision to reevaluate how they want to continue to monetize their $60 game. Anthem treads a much finer line with its monetization, and it takes it from the better end of the spectrum. The monetization system in Anthem will be cosmetic only in the sense of armor customizations and effects. While this is great, Anthem takes it one step further and makes it to where these paid cosmetics are also obtainable through gameplay as well. This gives players the option of buy it now or earn it yourself just by playing the game. While it would be wonderful for Anthem to not include microtransactions at all, the current climate of the industry shows that microtransactions aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Anthem's model of monetization is one of the best scenarios possible, but the only true concern here is how excessive is the time gating behind earning these cosmetics through gameplay, and is BioWare willing to make adjustments to that based on community feedback. This system will initiate a balance, and that has to be kept in check in order to appeal to the audience at large. People that want to spend money will always spend money, and those that refuse to will always refuse to spend. But there is a middle ground of people that can sway to either side. Having the system be too quick to earn these cosmetics will all but guarantee that these middle ground people will never spend money on your system. Having it too long or too difficult to obtain will make them feel reluctant to spend money on anything, so that again is limiting their sales. Cosmetics need to be able to feel like you're constantly making progress towards obtaining them simply by playing the game, and a decent content loop to make that progress feel unique. This is something that BioWare will definitely need to take feedback on and make proper adjustments to ensure that players don't feel like the devs are constantly reaching for their wallet. Anthem is a loot-based game, and one of the key driving factors behind these games is farming loot to make your character look and play how you want. BioWare acknowledges that some are heavily invested in how their characters look, and others simply just don't care and want to build their characters for the appropriate content. With that, customization and personalization are going to be completely separate. If you choose to be a hot pink colossus stomping through the jungle and destroying anything you see, you can do exactly that. Your javelin's appearance will have no effect at all on the gameplay experience, and you can build your character as well without any effects on your looks. This ultimately allows players to feel like their characters are truly their own, unlike something such as Destiny 2, for example, where at max level there are only a few armor sets available and everyone really just begins to look similar. Cosmetic freedom, but also farmable cosmetics through gameplay, given that there are plenty of options to go for, provide an additional content loop to grind for and is a further investment for keeping the player going for the long term. Long-term gameplay is also another crucial thing to be considered in these loot-based games. Anthem aims to be a game-as-a-service after launch, and in the best-case scenario will receive regular updates and content drops, but to maintain player engagement, the core gameplay and endgame loop needs to not only feel rewarding, but also unique or diverse enough to prevent early burnout before the game gets actual updates. BioWare, during a recent content stream, revealed that Anthem will start catering to two audiences. First is the casual player, who is going to be the main audience and also the hardcore min-max player. This is going to be done through allowing solo play, several difficulty options, significant build diversity through components, and co-op based endgame activities that offer matchmaking. Casual players can play the entirety of the game story solo or with friends, and then once they reach the end game, they can matchmake with others to complete the content. As a casual player, most are there for the core gameplay and the story, maybe enjoying an off mission or two with friends, but in the end are the people who will only pick up the game a few times a week for a limited time each sitting. Allowing these players to enjoy the game at their own pace, alone or together, without locking them out of endgame content allows them to stay invested without feeling like Anthem needs to be a second job in order to keep up. The hardcore player, on the other hand, is a completely different beast and will put far more time into the game than your casual player. These are the people that want to do the endgame content regularly and push their characters to a new limit. Anthem satisfies this through multiple difficulties, starting the game off with Lancer, Freelancer, and Master, which is essentially easy, normal, and hard, but giving you the option of Grandmaster 1, Grandmaster 2, and Grandmaster 3 as difficulties later on as you progress through the game. Difficulties are not the only thing that matters though, as substantial endgame content will also need to be available to keep the hardcore occupied. As of now, we know that there will be multiple strongholds, which are 4-player focused areas that feature slightly different mechanics to progress through, harder enemies, and usually a boss fight that rewards loot upon completion. We also have Shaper Storms, which we really don't have a whole lot of info on, so I'm not going to go into that too much. Legendary contracts that will send you out doing various tasks in the world for a reward. And there's also been some talks of legitimate raid encounters that'll be season based coming post-launch to further add to the endgame loop. There really hasn't been much said, so once again I'm not going to be diving into that, but in the end these activities will provide a loot grind that players can repeat to further progress their builds and allow them to reach that next difficulty point. The one key concern here though, at least for me, is this content unique in each instance or fun in a way that helps mitigate the burnout from repeating the same activities over and over, which you are going to be doing if you are a hardcore player? Will each of these strongholds feature a different type of gameplay to mix things up? Will one be focused on defending and pushing through waves, while another has a focus on platforming and puzzles? These will help further flesh out the content we will be grinding, instead of reusing the same concept for each activity. As I stated earlier, Anthem aims to be a game as a service, so post-launch content is certainly a must to keep players engaged, and in the industry today, a lot of companies are focused on monetizing post-launch as much as possible. Call of Duty charges $60 for their base game and an additional $50 for their DLC Season Pass, on top of having microtransactions implemented into the game as well. Destiny 1 and 2 both sold for $60 at launch, a $30 expansion pass for 2 DLCs post-launch, a $40 summer expansion for both games, another summer expansion for Destiny 1 a year later at $30, and an annual pass for Destiny 2, which is a glorified expansion pass after Forsaken coming in at $35, promising another year's worth of content up to August of 2019, where we will surely see another $30 to $40 expansion, if not a sequel, which is going to be, of course, another $60. All of this, regardless of the game, fractures your player base as new content drops, and players are cut off not only from the new content, but progression as well. With their past few releases, EA has moved away from season passes and locking DLC behind a paywall, which for the community at large is absolutely great, and they're going to be continuing that trend with Anthem and offering free DLC that expands upon the game's world and story. This will keep all of the players on the same page as long as they own the base game, and for future content, this is absolutely huge. Too often, players are cut off from their groups and progression, have to play catch-up when they can afford the new content, and they may eventually just grow tired of playing due to always being behind and of course having to drop money every few months to get even more content. With free DLC and totally optional cosmetic microtransactions, Anthem may end up being the game that sets itself apart as a diamond in the rough and a good reference point for other companies that choose to monetize after the initial release. I personally think that one of the best things a developer can do for their game's success is maintain an open dialogue with their community, always take feedback into consideration, but also keep expectations before new content at a realistic level. Since E3 of 2018, several members of Anthem's development team have been non-stop answering questions from fans about the game's core features. This isn't just a one-off question or two being answered like once a week. If you guys scroll through Ben Irving and Mark Darrah's Twitter feeds, this shows them answering hundreds of questions every single day about the game, while not revealing every little detail before release. The team has also been doing rather lengthy development streams, highlighting certain features within the game and again answering fan questions and assuring them that feedback on these particular features will be taken into consideration after the launch of the game. In the current industry, too many developers are hyping up games to be much more than what they truly are, and in some instances taking a step backwards with their sequels, delivering half-baked games under the impression of ship it now and finish it later. Pre-launch news and information from BioWare themselves has really set the stage for transparency and a feedback loop that will surely play a critical role in shaping Anthem after its release. And for a game with a long lifespan in mind, this is probably the most important thing to do. All in all, Anthem is looking promising, and a decent launch seems well within reasonable expectations. There is still plenty of room for error, and it is more than understandable to be hesitant about diving into Anthem straight away at launch. I'm not here to push pre-orders or anything. If you guys choose to wait for reviews and post-launch performance, absolutely go for it. That is totally your choice, and I support that 100%. But I do believe that if BioWare can maintain the game they've presented to us and keep an open conversation with the community about the game's future, Anthem could really shake up the looter-shooter genre for the better.